Welcome to Andy Decodes. Sit back and enjoy as we dive deeper down into the rabbit hole and into the unknown.
Hello and welcome to the shortened intro version of Andy Decodes. My guest tonight is Nigel Wright. Quick intro. So his interest in ufology began at the age of 8 following an alleged abduction event involving Nordic type aliens in his cigar chapel craft along with his late parents at Plympton near Plymouth in 1965. So welcome to the show, Nigel, and thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me along, and very an honour to be with you. Thank you, Andy, and good evening, everyone. I hope whatever we say tonight, yourself and your audience will find at least interesting.
Definitely will. There'll be
I'm feeling very old. You just said 1965. Just reminded me how old I am this year.
All right. I do apologise.
That's okay. That's okay.
Right. So, do you want to start at the beginning? And
yes, I'll go back. I'll go back in a dim mists of time. Hang on. 1965. I was about 7.5. Actually, it's the summer holidays. My parents were the early touring caravanners. It's quite a rare sort of hobby in those days, and we were on a campsite. Well, I say a campsite, it was a field with a whole load of electrical pylons going across it, and that was about it. A barn. Late in this night, it was thundering, terrific thunderstorm, and I was in the front of this caravan on a bed, and there was a curtain divider, and in the middle was the kitchen cum dinette, which was made into another double bed. My parents were sleeping there. And I woke up to the thunder, but I could hear my mum gabbling on to my dad. It's up there, Cecil, his name was. It's up there. I can see it. Every time it's lightning, I can see it. It's hovering over those power lines. It's got something dangling down from onto the power lines. My father was a press photographer and an engineer. And he was grasping around for his glasses and his camera, desperate to get a photograph of this thing. Couldn't find it in the pitch dark, and he had those days gas lamps, so it would have taken about 5 minutes to try and light the thing. And so he missed it because Mum said, all of a sudden, she said, "Oh, it's gone up at an angle. Oh, look, I can see people in the windows all the way along. And, oh my God, it's gone." It's gone. And I don't know why, but we all went to sleep, and that was it. And the morning came, and the funny thing was, it was never talked about again. The whole life, up to the time my parents died, it wasn't discussed. It was as if it had never happened, but it was lodged in my memory. And I got, from that day on, I had an interest in UFOs. I was fascinated by them. I liked astronomy anyway. I always liked looking up at the sky. And I started buying secondhand paperbacks. Remember the old 1960s paperbacks? And they were American ones, really. They were real trashy books. They used to have this sort of yellow edged paper on them, and they had this peculiar smell, which I've never forgotten. But they were about places in America that I'd never heard of. In fact, I got myself a map of America, put it on my bedroom wall, and started putting coloured pins in these little places and finding all these desert towns and that. And even then, I suppose I was trying to find some sort of idea of why these were happening where they were, and try and get some idea of patterns. And then up through the 70s, I grew up, went to college. I was still doing astronomy. I started seeing UFOs. Before I went to college, I started seeing UFOs over our home place, which were like satellites, but came halfway and then stopped. And then went off at a completely different angle, or came all together into a group, and then split, went their own separate ways again. They were not satellites. So one day I had my evening paper there, the local Exeter journal, we did an Exeter in Devon by then, and it had an invite to a public meeting, and a public meeting was by a very well-known ufologist, like one of the early first-generation ufologists, by the name of Mr.Shuttlewood. He of Warminster fame. He actually made the Warminster UFOs at Cradle Hill the famous thing that they were. And I went along to him as a very excited 16-year-old, or 17-year-old then, and I listened enthusiastically to this rather packed-out meeting, loved it. And afterwards, like most youngsters, I tried to charge forward to speak to the man that I had all the books on anyway. And he was very nice. He was actually a marvellous guy, and he stood there, listened to me, patiently rattling off these things I'd seen. He said, "You ought to come to Warminster sometime." He said, "I'll take you up Cradle Hill. We all go up there on a Saturday night, and you will see things you'd be amazed at." And so, actually, I don't know if he was surprised or not, but next Saturday, I got my pay from work, and I jumped on my motorbike and I drove to Warminster from Exmouth. Turned up at the local pub, not knowing where Cradle Hill was. And I walked in, and when I asked Cradle Hill, the place you could drop a pin on it, everyone just turned and stared, and he went, "Oh, you're one of Arthur, huh? You're one of Arthur's mates, are you? Well, you take a left, take a right," and I got it showing where to go. Went up there, and I'm not sure enough Arthur Shuttlewood was there. It was about 20 people or so. And I saw a couple of these really bright lights dancing around over the Cradle Hill. And he had me absolutely hooked on ufology from that moment on. I was already immersed in it, but I was really heavily immersed in it. And I joined Contact International, which was a very early ufology group in Britain. And then I went through the 70s. I remember UFO magazine was Graham Birdsall, the late great Graham Birdsall, who introduced me to journalism and gave me my break trying to write for UFO magazine. Not very successfully, but I tried. And then I got a chance to do a column in the local paper called Paranormal, a weekly paranormal with Nigel Wright, a diary of the paranormal. So I did that, and that was about everything, ghosts, poltergeist. And then came 97. Then there was a terrific UFO wave over the East Ham area. There was about close on to 150 sightings between May and September. But it wasn't just UFOs, it was USOs. We had ghosts, suddenly all increased. We had witchcraft, we had big animals, crypto. We had, you name it, everything was happening all at once in this particular triangular area. And when I did the research for the book, John and I decided to write a book. I belonged to the Centre for Fortean Zoology by then. And John and I decided to write a book about the summer of 97. And when I started doing research for it in the local library, we found out exactly every 10 years, right back to 1907, there had been UFOs, ghosts, and a sudden increase, and then nothing. And we were like Battle of Britain pilots in September. I had stupidly put my telephone number in my column in the paper.
Oh.
And I was having people phoning up at 2 o'clock in the morning, telling me about ghosts and UFOs they'd seen. But all of a sudden, I'm sat there on my edge, nothing. The particular night in September, it was like the end of the Battle of Britain. We just sat there and there was nothing happened. It went totally quiet. And every 10 years. Yeah. Fascinating.
Is that still happening? The 10 years?
I don't know why. I don't know why it happened, but it is every 10 years. It's cyclonic on that. It's then I went, as I said, I went into full-time journalism as a freelancer, and I've been writing for magazines and doing TV and cryptozoology ever since. Just retiring now, coming up to my 66th birthday in October, so I'm calling it quits then. I just do a bit of writing. I've been writing for a magazine now, and
you've been doing stuff for Chris Evers.
I've just started doing Chris. Chris very kindly asked me to do one, and I just did my first one out this month. And someone on advertising. Oh well, actually, has ufology been abducted? In the sense that advertising uses UFOs a heck of a lot nowadays. But in a way, it's done ufology a favour, because it means now you could talk about it publicly and not get, little green men thrown at you and weird looks in the pub. People actually don't take you so funnily nowadays. You can actually speak to a subject and people are interested. And that's good. That's a good thing.
Well, that's
Yeah,
it. It's done everyone a favour with, like you just said, being able to talk about the subject
yeah, I
without
think so.
worrying about what you're going to be saying.
Yeah, I like, you see, it's like situations like this tonight. Yeah, you can tell I'm a chatter. I mean, I was a cabbie for 14 years. I do it for an occupation, you know.
Yeah.
I took the hind legs off a donkey, but um, I love talking about paranormal. Any sort of paranormal. I love ghosts and poltergeists. I grew up in a haunted cottage. It was 400 years old and haunted to heck. Um, then our family home had poltergeist so bad that Take a Break, Breaking Fortune did an article on it. We had wardrobes and dressing tables flying across the room, and you name it, we had it going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love any sort of paranormal activity. I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's
Yeah.
it's the curiosity, isn't it? I think that's
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the thing.
It's a not knowing. I've always said
Oh,
this.
I get annoyed at not knowing.
I like. See, I like the not knowing
Yeah, but
because
don't you find it frustrated with it?
it's frustrating. But then I think if you do find out,
I just
you're not
may
going
if
to
I
be.
just move the tripod a little bit
Yeah.
closer. There we go. Yeah,
I've always thought if you do find out, are you not going to be a bit gutted that you now know what
I
it's
think so.
about?
But I think there's no end to the amount you can learn, and there's a big universe out there. And
Yeah.
you know, we've only just started exploring the possibilities of dimensional travel because I've got it in my mind. I've had it now for. See, when I did ufology to begin with, I was like most other people. I thought it was purely ET. It was
Yeah.
aliens, and you know, I think
Yeah.
we all grew up with the old 1950s movies. God bless them. But come to 2020, I was seriously thinking about dimensional travel, and I started
Yeah.
thinking, I don't think it's just UFOs that then travel in dimension. I think it's also every form of paranormal and supernatural event and cryptozoology event has its basis in interdimensional travel, be it on purpose or by accident. I think there's a crossover between dimension,
Yeah.
no time or space, call it what you will.
Yeah. No, I
I,
agree with you on that.
I think it's not a one all does all box. You know, I'm not trying to put everything into one box. That would be a
No.
mistake.
Oh no. Yeah.
But I
No.
think
Yeah.
it could explain a good lot of it. I think people, when you say, "Oh, that craft appeared there and then disappeared and reappeared over there," and you suddenly think, "Well, yeah, but it's not traveling there through our dimensions, so therefore it's just going to appear there and then appear here." You know, and the same with animals like with Sasquatch, Bigfoot, call it what you will.
Yeah.
You know, why do they suddenly appear on the edge of a football ground in the middle of Londonish area? You know, it doesn't make any sense. There's nowhere there for them to live. No, because they appear through some sort of dimensional. I hate the word portal, but it's the only word I can use. Some sort of dimensional portal, either by accident or as design, and have you know popped in, popped out. So
Yeah.
I think it fits the thing. And say for ghosts, and I'm going to upset an awful lot of spiritualists by saying that, aren't I?
Don't worry about it. Upset whoever
Um,
you want.
well, I've had a near-death experience with I had cancer, and I actually stopped breathing for about 3 minutes, and I had an out-of-body experience. So I can say yes, there is some form of dimensional life or life after death. What it is, that's up to your own faith, your own beliefs. I'm not going to tell anyone what to believe. You know, everyone's entitled to their own belief in that, but there's definitely something there. What it is, I don't know. I believe it's a dimensional trip. I think you go through a door of dimension from one to the other. But then that begs the question that I put in an article once: who are dead, we or the ghosts? Do the ghosts see us as ghosts? Is it a two-way thing?
That's it. I've always wondered this.
Yeah, I think that's an answer. You know, do they see a ghostly Nigel Wright looking through a window at them? You know?
Yeah.
God, I feel sorry for them if they do. But yeah,
I've always wondered. I asked a guest at Nicole that was on Wednesday. So say you see what you believe is a ghost, and you're
Mhm.
stood or sat there staring at it, and it's staring back at you, is that wondering the same thing as what you're wondering?
Yeah. Well,
Who the hell's that? Is that a ghost?
of course, you see, Andy, um, you can't really sort of, again, you can't put ghosts into a single box
No.
because you've got these things called cyclonic ghosts that go around and they'll do the same thing day in, day out, night in, night out.
Residual stuff.
Then they'll totally ignore you. You can yell at them, shout, dance in front of them, that just walk right through you. Then you get the ones that seem to stop. If you're talking to them, they will stop and sort of interact. So I don't think there's any one answer to it, but yeah, I mean, I definitely believe there's something. There's some form of, well, obviously everything's got a cause and effect. There's a cause and effect. And I think that the cause, be it on purpose or by accident, the cause is a dimensional warp and not a warping. Again, I'm using a sci-fi term. I don't want to.
Like a glitch.
It's a warping or a rip or a tear or a deformation in the energy fields between dimensions. And it's just, I think it's random. I think it occurs in certain areas. And I don't think are they planned? No. Are they produced? Possibly. And if they are, how? And that's the principle I've been trying to work out for about the last 10 years, is how do you artificially produce a warp in time or warp in the dimension? If you go into a ghost inhabited building and you use your EMF meter, which I love the EMF meter, providing you know what you're doing with it. It's one of those things, again, you've got to know what to watch and what to look out for, you know. But if you use it correctly and you find a weakness, a weak area, then you could concentrate on that area and generate a stronger sort of circulating vortex of electromagnetic energy there. Could you create your own vortex portal into another dimension? It's a thought. There's a lot of sci-fi amongst that, mind you, but this is a thought, you know. So I'll be, I'm a journalist, but also I'm just a mad, crazy inventor, I suppose, a bit of sort of bang bang. I'm Dick Van Dyke, but that's talent, you know. There you go.
Got a question for you.
Yeah.
I know people can get possessed, but do you believe that people can get haunted?
Do I believe people can get possessed? Yes, because I've been there, done it. Not very nice. Do I think you can get haunted? I think you can have ghosts follow you back to your building, to your home. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that they can attach themselves to you, definitely.
Yeah, attachment, hitchhiker sort of thing.
Yeah. Definitely. And how do you conquer that? You find yourself a decent, reliable, experienced medium to help you, put the person at ease and relieve you of the burden of being hitched, because it can. I've known people be very seriously affected by that, to the point of wanting to leave their homes because this person, thing, ghost, call it what you will, spirit, decides to come back with them and settle down and cause havoc in their own home. You know, so it's a definite problem, shall we say. I feel sorry for the spirit, but perhaps it's lonely, the other side, and they think they found a lifelong friend,
Yeah. But so just, I'm going to jump to one thing and then back again. Just to explain what I mean.
That's nice to meet a fellow grasshopper of mine. Don't worry about it. I've got time.
So, obviously, missing 411, where people go missing, no trace of them. So, like, say me and you was out and we've gone for a walk and we go through said portal and we go into the different realm or the different dimension. Mm-hmm. When we see these ghosts, would you say it's a possibility that they've done a similar sort of thing? They've walked, a time slip. They've walked through a time slip and come.
Time slips exist. I mean, there's a very famous time slip down. I'm a West Country lad. You can tell. I'm born in Somerset, but I live most of my life in Devon. And at the famous Powderham Castle There is a fantastic story of time slip there. A lady or gentleman, I don't know which now, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to be a little inaccurate on that score. They were walking up one nice sunny day to go to Bury Pomeroy Castle. This is a nice place, by the way. I've been there. And there, to their left were some lovely row of cottages and people in costume. They're like Victorian costume out. And there's these beautiful gardens. These cottages are really nice to smoke out chimneys. It's a nice, lovely place. I'll have a stop. We've got to get to the castle, but we'll stop on the way back to have some photographs done with them, you know?
Yeah.
Came out to the castle, and the cottages were all in ruins. They hadn't been inhabited for over 100 years. Well, that is a perfect true story. But it's like the Versailles Palace Gardens for those ladies who saw it in the early 1900s. It's like you can walk through a time dimension. You're quite right. Yeah, I perfectly agree with you. Missing flight, MH. You know the missing flight you're on about them. There's one other. Is it MH? MH something, where it totally disappeared. You often get that. There's been quite a few planes disappear. We'll forget about Bermuda Triangle. We'll think of other ones. Been quite a few that I love the Bermuda Triangle. That fascinates me, that place. Shouldn't do, but it does.
Yeah.
I think it's where my father, my dear dad, I was very fortunate. My father was one of these really quite annoyingly clever blokes who could have more than one profession. He was an engineer, very clever engineer, but he was also an aero engineer. He worked at Weston's Helicopters, was an inspector of motor blades. But he was also a press photographer. But for 1911, guy born in 1911, and a true Edwardian, he was also incredibly open-minded, really open-minded. And he loved to have discussions. We would have nights when TV wasn't allowed to go on. And my father would sit me down, and my poor mum would be knitting away in a corner, getting quite drunk with boredom, I think. And my father and my dad would discuss things like Atlantis and the Bermuda Triangle with me from a scientific and engineering point of view. Can you imagine that? A man, 1911. And he started talking about how he thought that the Bermuda Triangle was a point where two parallel universes collided or touched. Well, that was his thinking of it. It was a touching point between parallel universes. Well, what incredibly open mind for someone born in 1911.
But do you think? Sorry, do you think that he might have known a little bit more than what he was letting on? Just about that type of thinking pattern.
He was. I don't want to say, well, my father was perfect. Nobody's father is perfect, are they? But he was a very kind, very quiet man. But for his generation, he was just remarkably modern in his thinking. And he just, everything mechanical and electrical and engineering-wise fascinated him. He had to know how it worked. He was the sort of guy who would pull a gearbox apart and put in needle bearings one at a time and grease around lay shafts. I mean, this is a guy who had no formal training. He taught himself. And it just... but he'd sit down for hours doing mathematics and that. It was just one of these really annoying, clever people who never had to really work at being clever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a natural. And I think I was just so fortunate. I was really, really lucky because so many poor people aren't. I was really lucky. I had great parents, and I think that helps. If you've got an open family like that who will discuss things with you, it makes you open-minded. It means you don't get the blinkers. And take the blinkers off and everything's possible. Everything's possible. I thank God. There is one person who I really thought did the world of ufology a power of good. But nobody seems to agree with me on that one. And that is Eric von Daniken. And the reason I said that, and I know all the stories about von Daniken and etc. We won't go into it for obvious legal reasons there. But what I do credit him with is he gave a whole generation, my generation of young ufologists, he made us open our eyes to possibilities that we hadn't thought about. He looked around and he said to me, as he said to all of us when we read his books or listened to him speak, was open your minds to the possibility of an alternative history. Don't take everything you taught at school or college or university for granted. Don't accept every answer you're given as being the perfect truth. And you know, that is amazing. It's the best way of describing taking blinkers off that I've ever heard. It certainly did me. I found myself questioning things like ancient Egyptian history now. I found myself questioning, how do they know that? And 9 times out of 10, you're thinking they're making educated guesses themselves. You know, and yes, educated guesses, but guesses. Really, yeah. So there you are. That's one man I give more credit than I think he's given. And I think he should be given a lot more credit for taking people's blinkers off and just giving them the chance to think for themselves. Which is quite a gift to mankind, isn't it? I think, without being grandeur about it. I think it's. But there you are.
Giving everyone the chance, helping them have the ability to think for themselves as well.
Absolutely. One thing, you know, when I did lectures and talks quite a lot, 20 years. Sorry about that. I kept my own.
Oh, you're all right.
Kept my own standing. I used to give lectures to groups and what have you, especially in the southwest. And I used to come down, and the first thing I ever did, I say, look, they call it a lecture, but I'm not here to give a lecture. I'm not here to stand on a soapbox and say I know everything, you know nothing, so I come here to tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I come here principally to entertain you. To hopefully give you some information that I've gleaned over the years you may not have heard of. But then I just, if you arrange for option, go away and think about it yourself and reach your own conclusions, because you cannot dictate to people what they believe. You can you can inform and you can entertain, but you cannot dictate. No. And to me that's the power of good talking or giving chats, or like tonight. You can just chat and say to people, look, have you heard of this? If you've heard of it, fine. You can have people tell you things you hadn't heard of. You know, it should be a two-way thing. That's the way I always talked. And I still do. And I hate scripts. I'm so bad. This is free range. I hate scripts.
You and me both. I can't write anything down. If I do, it just.
I tried.
And there was, and that's what it feels like.
I tried. I tried. Although I know I write partially for a living, I did, and I write for a hobby. Writing a book is different because then you got to write down. You know, you got to do your notes.
That's different.
But when it came to work, the last time I wrote notes down was for my wedding, and I wrote down the notes to who to thank and not to thank on a little card, like you were supposed to do, and get up to give my speech. Slipped, not the card, I went right under the wedding cake stand. And so I stood there and I didn't have a word to say. I didn't know who to thank, not to thank. So in the end, I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank everyone I got to thank, not thank anyone I haven't got to thank. Have a nice time, enjoy yourself, enjoy the food, enjoy the drink, enjoy the chat, enjoy. Thank you very much. Boom. That's it. Shortest speech in history. You know, that's me.
You knew what you were going to say, ish.
Yeah, but that comes through. I did a lot of amateur dramatics when I was younger, so one learns to improvise. Yeah. But it's again that helps when it came to giving talks, because you get nervous, but it's just getting on stage again. It's just you know, people pay money to come and see you. Don't know why sometimes, but they do. So you know, there's a new project I'm working on with someone else. I can't say too much at the moment, but there's going to be a new way. There's going to be two of us doing a talk at the same time, and both of us are very established long-term public speakers, and we're just going to speak about several dozen years of experience as a team. Together, the first time either of us have worked with someone else. So that should be interesting. I'm looking forward to doing that. Yeah. I'm the joker, unfortunately. I always take life with a pinch of salt and a laugh. My dear old mum used to say to me, "Laugh and the world laughs with you, cry and you cry alone," and that's a very true saying, I think. World's sad enough already, I think, but the rest of us adding to it. It's a sad old world. There you are.
Yeah.
I'm preaching again. I'll get off my soapbox.
Got a question for you.
Yeah? Fire away.
I don't know I can't remember the exact location, but it's your neck of the woods. So the owl man in Cornwall.
Well, I can never pronounce it myself. It's down in southern Cornwall.
Doesn't it?
I actually I film on it with John Downes. Yeah, it's the Owl Man of Cornwall, the Owl Man of
Malwyn.
Yeah, it's a very strange name, Cornish name, but it's this little wee church in the middle of nowhere next to a forest, and then the forest goes down to the sea, down to the seashore. And two young girls went down there in the 70s, and they saw a tall humanoid type figure, except he had feathers, and he was stood in a tree with a face and the head of an owl, looking at it with burning red eyes. And they went back screaming. Local witch said that he'd generated it. The local coven said that they'd called and summoned it. There was a big the Owl Man has been seen in other places and parts of the world. It's the Mothman, of course, in America. It's a similar sort of crypto phenomena. But it was an interesting case, and one that John is far more the expert than I on that sort of thing. I basically went along it was a learning experience for me when I first started in crypto. And again, it's fascinating. Human psychology becomes involved in it, why an owl? You think to yourself, of all the creatures it could appear as, why an owl?
But didn't it come back in the 90s? There's a family.
I've heard rumours about that. Yeah.
2 kids. I think it was 2 boys.
I
think I've got 1992, 93 in my head.
Yeah.
I might be completely. I don't know. It's definitely the 90s.
I think you're around about the right date, but I mean, to be honest with you, without looking at it myself, I wouldn't like to commit to it because you've caught me out there. Well done, Andy.
Sorry, I just thought because it's not your area.
It's my neck of the wood. Well, I mustn't say that. My wife's Devonian. She says anything south of the River Tamar doesn't exist. You see, Devonians they don't like. They don't. And then she's laughing. No, but it should be right up my street, really, shouldn't it? But
sorry,
don't murder me for that one. No, it is a really interesting case, but it's got an awful lot of sidetracks going off it about local characters. Doc Field, who was a showman and a magician, and he claimed to have conjured up this character. There is an awful lot of side stories to that.
Weren't there
it's a fascinating subject.
There was a report a couple of years ago around the same area. I don't know. I don't know anything more than that.
Well, if I may, I'd like to look at myself because I'll have a word with John. John, he's not too good nowadays, but I'll have a chat to him because he'll know. If anyone knows John well, he'll probably have all the up-to-date information on it, and I'll get up and let you know on that one, Andy.
Thank you.
As I say, after I'm trying to think now. What's that? It's over nearly 60 years in the paranormal now. I've got an awful lot of stuff got on in my mind over those years, and most of which shouldn't be there. So one gets a little bit caught up with facts and figures sometimes. But I'm not a computer. I'm a human being, and I tend to forget more than I remember nowadays. But it's such a fascinating subject. I can go onto Facebook every day. I'm a Facebook addict. I admit that. I've had a break recently because we have some family troubles. But hang on a minute. My wife, ever the thankful researcher by my side. she's now giving me. Here we are, the owl
Give
man.
you some info.
The owl man of Malwan, MAWNAN, Malwan. First in 1976. But yeah, that's what it says to their history. There are 2 young girls on April 1976. Saw it there. Then there was a pamphlet subsequently published called Morwalla, the Monster of Falmouth Bay by Nancy Morwell and Peller, which circulated throughout Cornwall in 76. And according to Tony Shields, that gentleman I was telling you about, it was supposed to be seen by 2 14-year-old girls who saw this and drew a big owl man with pointed ears as big as a man, with glowing eyes and black pincer-like claws. I love that. There have been sporadic sightings of it around that church in 78, 79, 89 and 95. There you go. So, yeah, you're right. There was quite a lot of sightings. And also, apparently, loud owl-like sounds being heard around that church at night. Well, I'm not surprised. There's a big, thick forest. I suppose you would hear an owl or two in a forest at night.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be very surprised if you didn't. The last one was reported apparently in the year 2000. So, there you go.
I knew it was nearer this time than I thought it was.
They're quoting another gentleman that I happen to be friendly with. I was lucky in the sense of when I came into doing this for a living. I got to know a lot of people who weren't so well known then as they are now, if you know what I mean. And one of them was the gentleman mentioned here, Lionel Panthorpe, the Reverend Lionel Panthorpe, the Rocking Rep himself, who did a 14 show on Channel 4. But he was involved in the investigation of this. It's tied in. It's very similar to the Mothman in America.
Yes,
it's a very similar sort of cryptozoological phenomena. I tell you another thing we've done, John and I, and that was the chupacabra, the goat suckers in South America.
Yeah.
And we sent an expedition out. John went out with his friend Graham, did an expedition around America and South America, and looking for the secret chupacabra. Found some fur, found some spilled blood, and the locals are actually paradoxically fearful of this thing. I mean, it really is the most horrific thing ever. But luckily, it only seems to attack animals, not humans. But it just literally drains this poor creatures of their blood. It's the most horrific looking thing. Then you got the blue dog of Texas, which is again a really weird thing. It's a dog with no fur and it's blue.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you talk about that? Because I've only heard a little bit about that on a podcast a couple of years ago.
Again, I don't know an awful lot. There was a gentleman in Texas who claimed to have shot one, but it was mysteriously disappeared before anyone could get a hold of it. But yeah, it's again, that's been examined by experts. Did say that it could have been some sort of poor mutant coyote who had a skin disease. But it was. Crypto is a marvelous thing. It's a fascinating subject because I like it. It ties in with the paranormal. And whichever way you look at it, these things, like I said to you before, they've all got a common denominator. And crypto often occurs in the same areas, UFOs and ghosts. These areas of high interest that I particularly like. So yeah, where you find blue dogs in Texas, there was often UFO sightings. Where you get Bigfoot, you often see UFOs. Where you see big cats, there's often UFOs as well. So there seems to be some connection, and that's why I say dimensional connection. I think it is. It's different in the sense of big cats in England because there are big cats on the loose, like lynx, European lynx, which are on the prowl in England. One was knocked over and killed on Bodmin Moor. I used to know a gentleman called Elias Drew, and he used to run the Dartmoor Zoo. There used to be a little zoo into Dartmoor, and he kept lynx in there. He used to keep tigers in there as well. He used to breed tigers in his house. What's amazing, man. And
Wow.
his playmate was about a fully grown fully grown tiger, which was so loud you could hear it banging against its steel cage doors as you entered the building, the grounds. And that was the thing that I walked into a cage for the European lynx and Fusion lynx over my head, and had its babies up there. So yeah, I come in about 3 foot of a lynx over my head. But so yeah, he used to tell me of these harness lynx. They come down off the moor, the wild ones. Is there a miner in season? They'll come down calling at them through the gate, through the standing fencing. He said, "Oh, they'll do it. They've always been there. Always will be." So yeah, lynx I think do exist still in the wild in England.
Yeah. Do you think it's?
Sorry,
I was just going to say, do you think it's from these private zoos when the
licensing changed? Yeah, there was a lot of trouble. There's the 1976 Dangerous Wild Animals Act.
Yeah, that was it.
What it's meant was basically up to then you could go into Harrods and buy a cub of a lion or a tiger or a puma for 60 guineas. And a lot of film stars were seen walking up through Oxford Street with a puma on a lead, and that, it was a big status symbol thing. But then the Dangerous Animal Act came, and all of a sudden you had to have a £5,000 cage and a license costing Lord knows what to keep an animal like that under control. And rightly so, in my book. But there was a lot of them who couldn't afford the 5,000, couldn't be bothered, and basically went to a local wildlife or wild area and let thing go.
Just released them. Yeah.
Rather irresponsible to say the least, but they did, And, but there's been things like that right back in history. Holden Hill near Exeter. There you are. You can tell West Country when I'll start quoting local legends if you don't mind. But Holden Hill.
Fine. Carry on.
In the war, Exeter was, like most parts of the West, was heavily involved with D-Day. And coming up to D-Day, obviously American troops, there were literally thousands of them count, coming over from the States and preparing for invasion. And one of these was a air group, and they were based at Exeter Airport, and their what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Their sort of feature they kept, like a sort of God, I'm lost for words now. What's the word? I'm lost myself. Sorry.
It's all right.
Their sort of emblem, their good luck charm was a bobcat, and they couldn't take it on D-Day with them for obvious reasons. So they took it up to Holden Hill, this local place, and they let it go. They let it go, and the thing's tried for years up there on wild rabbit and deer. But it's a bobcat. So you get these crazy situations where you get animals that shouldn't be there, but are there through human neglect or just couldn't be ours, basically. They just got rid of it wherever they could. Yeah. But yeah, I think that lynx have survived and bred, most definitely. I'm not too certain about the panthers and the pumas and the lions. That would be pushing it a bit. But have they been seen? Yes, I believe they have. Are they here breeding natural in their habitat? Apart from a few areas in Britain, I'd be very highly surprised if they are. We haven't got the acreage, of wild habitat for that. Again, if they're here, it's a dimensional thing in my view. That's just personal. It's a dimensional thing, which would account for why the army can go there and not find anything, and the next week that someone can see it there.
Did you ever see the video of Bodmin Moor of a black lion, or what looked like a black lion?
Yeah, I've seen that's a well-known one. But again, you talk to the experts. I'm no expert. I'm an interested amateur. Always have been. But I talk to people like the head of big cats at Plympton Zoo, highly qualified zoologist, a big cat keeper who had been in charge of big cat game reserves in South Africa. I mean, this guy knew everything there was to know about big cats. He said, "Oh yes, I've seen paw prints of lions and pumas and leopards on Dartmoor." I stood back and said, "You're actually saying officially, as an expert of Plympton Zoo, lions exist and pumas exist. No. Well, I couldn't say that, but I'll say it to you. But it would not go public about it. So, you know, and there's been tufts of skin. We had tufts of hair examined by Copenhagen University, came back as being DNA of puma. And we was found on a barbed wire fence in Devon. So, you know, the proof is there. The footprints of the big cat are pretty easy to identify in wet, muddy ground. There is the shape of the pad, which is concave on a big cat, and I'm going to get this so wrong. Concave on a big cat, convex on a dog. Oh, I'm going to get that wrong, you know, so I never could remember that right. And then the obvious one is claws. On a cat, the cat can can pull its claws back in. So when it goes through some crowd, there won't be any hole marks. But on a dog, there's a hole where claws because the claws are permanent. So it's a dead giveaway. As soon as you see whole claw marks, that's a dog. Full stop. End up. So yeah, there's ways you can tell. If anyone's got a problem with big cats, can I tell them how to make a humane trap? Would that be okay? If you think if you've got a problem with what you think is a big cat on your property, folks, and you don't want to hurt the animal in any way, which nobody's advising that at all. I certainly wouldn't advise them when they go shooting anything. Don't go out with a gun or a air pistol or a bow and arrow, because you could kill something or someone. And no one's going to advise anyone to do that. Leave that to the experts. But no, if you want to sort of get some proof without hurting the creature, get yourself a nice piece of meat, which is an expensive start. Haul it up onto a branch about 6 or 7 feet up, and high enough to keep it away from small animals, but high enough that they got to reach for it. And then around it, build about a 3-foot square frame of 2x1 timber, and fill it up with builder sand. Level it out nice and smooth. If you want to put a trail cam there, great. Put a trail cam next to it, and just leave it for 2 or 3 nights. You'll get loads and loads of footprints of animals, and if you're lucky, you'll get nice lots of film. But you'll also get, if you do, you'll get big claw marks if it's a cat. They get nice big paw marks with no claws, and that would be a big cat. So there you are. That's how to make a humane trap where you're not hurting anything or anyone. Okay?
Cool. Yep, thank you for
that. That's all right.
Not many around near where I live, but you know, I'll say that, and then there'll be about 10 outside later.
Well, at least you can't be said that you're advising anyone to break the law or go and hurt anything or anyone. I certainly wouldn't like to see wildlife being stalked, killed like that. I'd hate that. I would absolutely delegate it. But a humane trap like that, the only thing it does is get some poor creatures' paws a bit dusty. Well, that's not going to hurt anyone, so that's fine. You know, I think even the RSPCA would be okay by that one.
Right.
You're helping research. You know, you're helping research.
Yeah, definitely. Right, we have got some questions for you.
Oh,
if you'd like to start with them,
by all means.
We can do a couple before the break,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll carry on second half, not part 2. Right, so the first one.
A bit like being on mastermind this.
Right, I'll just do them in order.
Okay.
Then. So the first one's from UFO Joe.
Hiya, Joe.
Nigel Wright, how can you put up with today's madness? Respect.
In what sense? What do you mean that? Today's madness.
That's when we was talking about UFOs and maybe to do with the disclosure, possibly.
Oh, I'll tell you. Okay, Joe and Andy, I'll answer you on that one. If you've been, I count myself as a 2nd generation ufologist in England. I was too late for the 1st generation, unfortunately. I missed all the excitement of that. But I count myself from the sort of 60s onwards. So I have heard the word disclosure so many times, and so many
Yeah.
times it comes down to, well, we can't really tell anything new because it's classified, and there isn't anything to, or there's nothing really to tell you. This time seems a bit different in the sense that we've got to an official hearing of Congress, and there's been some interesting stuff said. So, will it lead to eventual complete disclosure? I very much doubt it, Andy, to be honest with you. I think it'll just be a bit of the way along the road. How do I put up with it? Oh, unfortunately, in our subject, that's something we've got used to having to do. I don't think, short of a full public landing of a UFO in 10 Downing Street or the grounds of the White House, which I can't see happening, I think a heck of a lot of this stuff is military projects. And we talk about FTs and the TR-3B and its descendants, because the TR-3B is donkey's years old now. I think there are such things. I've seen them up close and personal, very personal, about 25 feet over my roof of my house. They're human. They're human made. Whether they use back engineered alien technology or whether it's just some very clever chaps who kept this technology secret, black technology for donkey's years, I don't know. But I know that it does exist. I know they're there, and I very much suspect that they're governmental. It's always been, hasn't it? We've always had governmental craft. The F-117 was seen over Area 51 about 10 years before it became public. People were saying it was a UFO. Well, it wasn't. The B-1's the same. We always get these funny craft. But no, I don't put up with it. Well, Joe, probably like the rest of you ufologists do, we just shrug our shoulders and say, one day, hopefully, they'll come down and say, take us to our leaders if they don't kill us first, Who knows? But we just, it's what makes it fun. Sometimes it makes it very frustrating in others. But thanks for the question. It's a good question. It's a good question.
There's another similar question to it. That's why I put it up on the screen from Warren. He's put, what is Nigel's view on this week's UFO House hearing?
Sorry.
On this week's UFO House hearing, does he believe disclosure is imminent? So you've kind of answered it anyway.
Do I think we're going to have partial disclosure as we've had before? Yes. Do I think it's going to lead to full disclosure? I wouldn't like to bank on it. To be honest with you, I think I've become so fatalistic about the fact we'll never really get to know the whole truth of it unless we're visited publicly, and there's fewer thousands. But even then, we've had UFOs appear in front of thousands of people at an airport before in daylight, and it was all covered up and all the cameras were confiscated and people were sworn to secrecy. So, no, I don't think it'll lead to full disclosure. I'm sad. I'm very saddened about that. I wish it would. I wish they would end the mystery. All us ufologists could hang our hats up and say, well, that's it. Case solved. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think then that they're not giving full disclosure because they don't know?
No. I think they're hiding a awful lot. I think the days of CIA and MI6 and higher authorities, shall we say, than that, unnamed organizations disclose everything, they'll have nothing to do. They'd have to hang up their hats and retire, wouldn't they? They enjoy having the secrets. Because when they got secrets, they got power. And power in government is the main thing. If you've got power over the people, you can maintain your position. Once the people get the power, you're no longer needed.
Game over.
So, I'm not without getting political, but that's
no, completely agree with
it's the secret of politics. Keep control. Let control, well, there's chaos, and you don't want chaos. So the argument is always, well, if you told them everything, there'd be pandemonium and panic, which, of course, there probably would be. To be fair, a certain degree, people would go out and panic on the streets, and the rest would be hanging up signs saying, oh, thank God for that, come along, get us.
Come and take us.
Do you remember Independence Day when they had the party on the roof on the film Independence Day, and they're holding the signs up saying, yippee, welcome. Next thing you know, they're going to eternity, well, it could be like that. Who knows? There you are.
That's it. Right. Switching subjects. This is from Jo, moderator that we was chatting to before we went live. She would like to know, has Nigel seen any cryptids? And if so, which ones? Please?
Yes, I have. which ones I've seen the melanistic leopard. See, I noticed I kept the right name,
Yes,
melanistic
you
leopard.
remembered that one.
Why did we just call it Black Panther? Everyone knows I'm on about it.
Well, yeah.
7:30 at night, Woodbury Common near Exmouth. It's a very interesting privately owned common, still privately owned. But it's got 41 tumuli there, an Iron Age fort. It's been extremely active in ufology as well as cryptids. This thing sat on the road 7:30 at night, got up off the road, looked at me. I stopped my car, my Seat Alhambra 7-seater, which is quite high up, and locked my doors, and I nearly died of fright. This thing was just beautiful. It was a solid a creature as you could possibly wish. There's nothing wishy-washy about it. It was perfectly solid animal. Leapt up over a fence after a couple of minutes after growling at that they do, and these beautiful reflective eyes back at me. And then height, I don't know, 3 foot from the ground, something like that, 2-3 foot at the shoulder, 4 foot long, 4 mid tail, thin, curl up at the end, almost the same sort of length, pricked ears, very beautiful, beautiful creature, scary as hell, but beautiful to look at. And then leapt over this hedge into a forest on the left and was gone. And I sat there and I got home, and I must admit, the first thing I did, I sat there and poured myself a stiff scotch, which is very unusual for me. And I was sat there sipping it, and the wife came and I said, "What's the matter?" And when I told her, apparently I was shaking. It absolutely, although I was investigating paranormal and cryptozoological stuff full time then, it really, really shook me up more than any UFO's ever done. So that was one cryptid. Have I seen any more? No. I've looked for them. Like we were discussing before, I've looked for the owl man. I've looked for what the hell's the name of that? I'm trying. This is what I mean by having so much information over the years. It's Red Dawn, the film. They call themselves something in the film, and what it is, it's like an otter, but it's an otter on steroids. And there was a creature, sort of these had been seen at a pet cemetery at the top of Holden, Holden Hill. And it was digging up creatures and eating them, eating the corpses. And we thought it might have been one of these creatures that got a gate from a collection. Again, it's a private collection, because these things are so fierce, the native Indians won't even hunt them. They are literally like an otter sort of creature, but on steroids. They have got a fierce temper on them. Wolverines. There you are. I know I'll get it sooner or later. Wolverines. Yeah. I was thinking of Red Dawn, the film, when I was thinking that. It was
Warren just said, wrote Wolverine as you said
Wolverines. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Warren. I know somebody nudged my brain. It must have been you doing it psychically, my friend. No, but it's but that's the only two I've actually seen. I've looked for Loch Ness Monster, haven't seen it. Did a lot of theoretical work on the Loch Ness Monster. Fascinating again. You can go into all sorts of angles on that one. No, apart from that, no, none I've actually seen and witnessed firsthand. I've been to Cannock Chase and hunted Bigfoot by the German War Cemetery. Well, it's an unusual place, Andy. If ever you get a chance.
I did a live stream there in January.
Did you?
We went during the day. Me and the missus went. We went for the day.
Yeah.
We went to do an investigation, and we went to the Stepping Stones.
Mm-hmm.
Then we drove right in Brockton.
Mm-hmm.
So we went because our different areas. So we walked around Brockton. Took about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Then we got back in the car and we drove up to the German cemetery. So we went
in there. Isn't that the weirdest place to find a German war cemetery? Right in the middle.
Very strange.
It is, and it's got an atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it still is today, but when I went there, it was entirely surrounded by forest. And
it still is. But it's got, I don't know if it might sound stupid, it's got a green fence going round it.
I never had that when I was there.
You getting in, but you can just, where, I don't know if it's like is it called a cenotaph, where the tomb is in the middle,
Yeah.
and you've got
Yeah.
the pillars. You can just walk in through the. I was going to say doors, but it's just an opening.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where a lot of cryptids have been seen.
A lot of
Bigfoot
dog
have been
men.
seen on the edges of that place.
Yeah.
You know, there's a story about a UFO crashing into a tower on transmission tower on Cannock Chase back in the 60s, what I remember. And then, of course, you've got black-eyed children.
Yeah.
You've got Stone
man.
Age man-type creatures seen. Again, time shifts. We were talking about time portals.
Yeah.
This Iron Age caveman type creature is seen. This semi-hominid sort of creature.
Yeah.
I love areas of high interest or high strangeness. They are my.
Can I, just before we go on a break,
Yeah.
can I show you a picture? So this was sent to me.
Hang on, I'll have to put my bins on so I can see properly.
I'm
There
going
we
to put
go.
an image up. So this was sent to me by Jodie Cook.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Jodie. Right.
He does Dogman Project in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he sent me this. He's not been well, so he was going to send me the information, like who it come from and whereabouts it was filmed. But this is from Canada. Everyone in the chat hates this. But it is a good picture. These three pictures, these three negatives, and then I've done a zoom in on what it is. So I'll just do them in order. So this is the first one.
I see. We're looking at the left-hand object as we're looking at it?
Just behind the trailer.
Hang on. Oh, zoom it up on my... you have to excuse me cutting myself off from it. I'll zoom up the image so I can have a look. That's interesting. That is very... Oh, whoa, that is more than very interesting.
So I've been studying this picture for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And if you look at the side of that trailer, obviously, we're living out in like the sticks, you're going to see a lot of tractors and flatbeds.
Yeah, you will, yeah. That's going to take, what, 15, 20 feet back from it?
Yeah.
Like
so I've worked out that creature isn't as tall as I first believed.
6 foot, maybe?
I'd have said about 3.5, 4 foot.
Would you? No, possibly, I suppose. Depends again on the size of the trailer, doesn't it? But I mean, I'm looking at the stature, you see. That's the zoologist. That's John's training in me. I'm looking at the skeletal structure.
I'm looking at the
ankles are all wrong.
The trailer to where it's stood.
Do you mind Sue popping your head when Sue can come and have a look?
She's more than welcome.
Interesting one, that.
So you can see the shadow. There's nothing blurred. This is from a trail cam. The farmer had weird stuff going on, so he set a trail cam up. So that was the first one. Well, that's out of focus, but the gravel on the floor and the trailer isn't. Yeah. So then that's the second one.
Look. I'm looking at the ankles. The ankles are all wrong. There's too much weight pivoted forward on the foot for me. He's not actually.
That's the third one.
There you go. That gate, right?
That's moving because everything else is still in focus. Now this is
God, doesn't that head look wolf-like?
There.
Oh, sorry, that's
sorry.
That's okay. Oh, that lovely claws. Bear-like almost, aren't they? Yes,
but it looks like it's sheep, like fur, like wool. Doesn't look like...
the claws. The claws.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dangerous weapons. Oh, interesting that. Oh, thank you for that one. That's that. Do you think it's real? I don't know. It's certainly worth having a. Can I advise a gentleman who sent in? Yeah, I advise him to play around with some enhancement on that, because I think you could get a lot more detail with that.
Well, I can send you these pictures if you want.
But I wouldn't like to do it without a gentleman's permission, because obviously
he's given me full permission to use them and do whatever.
I mean, I thought I could do a trial on AI. I use AI Adobe Mix. You know, you've seen some of the enhancement work I do. and I think I could get a bit more detail to that. Because that head's interesting me.
See,
Oh, do you
if
see
you
what I
look at the
mean?
snow, so if you look at the snow, just its right eye, so the left eye
Yeah.
as we're looking at it,
Yeah.
it looks like there's a tusk or a tooth coming up. It might
Oh,
just be
yeah, just there. Just below the right-hand corner of the eye.
yeah, just coming up
Yeah.
like
Yeah. That is fascinating. I'm sure I could get some more detail of that,
yeah.
Andy.
But
By all means,
I've zoomed in more than that, but you just lose it on the pixels.
yeah.
So
Well, that's a danger. You see, that's where I went wrong when I first started doing enhancement. You get hold of something 20 odd years ago. Wait, how come now? No, it's about 20 odd years ago when I started doing Adobe Photoshop. Very early thing of Photoshop, over 20 years ago. And in those days, the first thing, whack on all the filters, whack on all the enhancement, And the first thing you do, of course, is make it so pixelated it looks like a newspaper print blown up. It's just dots, and you lose any idea of perspective. Horrible. And what I've learned to do over the years is restrain my excitement somewhat, and then I use a maximum of about 20%, 25% of the filter capacity and the enhancing capacity of any one thing, and I go gradually. Then I'm making an AI enhancement of that first Photoshop image, but again, not to the full whack, using just a small percentage of the capacity of the program. Then I go back and do the same process again, using that enhanced image, and then do that gradually, stage by stage, until I get to a point where I think, well, if I do any more, I'm going to lose the fineness of the print, or lose the definition. So there is a way of doing it, but you've got to curb your enthusiasm somewhat. And when you see a print, first of all, you think, wow, look at that detail, whack it up full. We've all done it. I've done it many a time, and you pay the price for it, but there you are. Yeah. Okay, so that I'm glad that you have a go at it. I'll let you have the results. We keep those results on PM. If that's okay with the gentleman who owns a copyright,
fine.
Well,
he got them sent to him, and when he came on the show, he sent them to me.
I mean, I haven't seen a detailed one like that for a long time. That's a fascinating shot. Thank you for sharing it.
But there is, so just quickly before we go to a break, I'll just get the other. Oh, it's all right. I know where it is. I'm just going to add another image. So there was a sighting. I don't know if you've heard of this, of the slitting mill troll.
No, I hadn't heard of that one, Andy. You got me completely new. You got me fascinated. I haven't heard of it. Yeah.
This is from the 70s. So I'm just going to load the picture up now.
You wouldn't believe the mental pictures that's going on in my mind beforehand. Yeah.
Right. So this is a drawing of what somebody seen in 1970.
Are
you ready?
Yep. Carry on. Wow. That's interesting. But I wonder why you put one beside the other. I tell you what, first thing that strikes me is more don't hand. The actual stance look very similar, doesn't it? But would you draw a human face on it? That is definitely that's not a human face on the right, is it? There's no way you could mistake that for a human face.
But then if you can't draw and you're describing to someone what something looked like,
well, wouldn't you try and draw a dog face to it? If not, you can't be too anatomically correct, but sure you could show some sort of vestige of looking like a dog. But I don't know.
It is difficult because you're trying to remember what you've seen.
Yeah, there is a similarity in the main. If you look at the shoulders on the creature on the right, it has got a longer mane of fur around the shoulders and upwards than it has for the rest of the body. So that agrees. The posture agrees to a certain extent. The foot and leg crouches and the arm positions look similar. The claws look similar too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are similarities there, definitely. Hey, perhaps it's a hybrid between a wolf
See?
and one of these trolls. There you are. I'll start a new signal for you. It's a wolf troll.
I just thought I'd show you them with that
Oh,
being your
thank you.
view.
I find that I really like that first shot. That's a really spectacularly good trail cam shot. That I must. If we have a go at that, I will definitely have a go at trying to get some more detail out of it.
Oh, not that one. Where's it
But
going?
I
This
think
one.
the second, third, that's it. That is. Even with my glasses off, I can see that sat back here. That's quite interesting. It's one of those when your fingers start to itch over the AI program. You think, because the AI is very overrated in some ways, but what it is good at, if you use it in moderation, it's like most things in moderation. Good, good in moderation. It
Don't
can
overdo it.
Oh, that's it. That is again. I go back to my late dad. As a photographer, he used to tell me one thing. Tell me a lot of things. He taught me a lot of things. I'm basically an unpaid apprentice for about 20 years. But he had two things he said about photography that always stuck in my mind. He said, photography is an art, except as a photographer, you don't use brushes, you use light, which I always thought was a fantastic way of describing photography. And the other thing was, there's one trick to photography. I said, what's that, Dad? Composition, composition, and composition. He said, you've got to compose the picture correctly and paint it with light correctly. And I thought, that just about sums up photography. So, I've always remembered that when I'm doing enhancement, if you get the lighting right and you trim it back to what the subject is, you take it the circular background and you bring it up, not using the enhancing and magnifier, but use your own, on a mobile anyway, you can stretch your fingers out and bring the thing up. Use that to a certain extent, but then crop it. Turn the cropping corners in, and it'll bring as you crop it inwards, it'll bring the picture up without taking too much of the definition out. And that's a good trick for getting enhancement. Don't use the built-in magnifier filter because that will take the quality off right away. Just use a natural cropping features where it brings it up, and use the little fingers to bring it up as well. There you are.
Cool. Thank you. Right. We'll have a 5-minute break and then we'll come back with the questions. Is that okay?
Fine, absolutely fine. I'm enjoying it. Thank you.
Excellent. Right. See you guys in 5.
Okay. Bye for now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, and we are back.
Hello again.
Hello again. Right.
Hello.
Do you want to go to the next question?
Yeah, fine. No problem at all. Can I get started for 10 or just crack on? Sorry, I'm being facetious.
Okay. It's fine. It's always good to have a laugh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Right.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
This one is from the Sober Carper, and he'd like to know, what is the most compelling UK case Nigel has investigated?
Most compelling case. Was that case? Yeah. Most compelling case. The weird case of the warbling what's it. There you are. Now that sounds good, doesn't it, for a start? We had this is back in the old CFZ days. We had a report from a lady who lived in a fairly oldish bungalow right next to what was and still is, I believe, Exeter City Football Club's training grounds.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, I've got a strange insect creature. It's around my house, and every night this blessed thing is making this weird sound in my wall of my bedroom, and I can't get to sleep. And it's driving me crackers. And people have heard it, and they can't." And so typical Devonian, you know. And I sort of said, "Well, we'll go around and have a listen one night, man. We'll find it." What time is it? Oh, 2 o'clock every morning. This thing goes off. It's horrible. It's some sort of creature. It's warbling. It's gassy. I should get some foreign insects thrown in. So we said if we recorded it. No, didn't have a recorder. So I volunteered along with someone else. And about 3 of us went across. And 2 o'clock in the morning, we're sat there with a cup of coffee trying to stay awake. And sure enough, this thing starts. It's the weirdest warble. I can't even start to impersonate it. It's like a strangulated cricket. It's the weirdest thing you've ever heard in your life.
Right.
And project it's coming from this wall. And it's coming from a wardrobe. So we think, aha, must be something in the wardrobe. So we turf the wardrobe out. There's nothing there. And meanwhile, this thing's still warbling away.
Yeah.
And we've gone through all the records about continental insects and foreign insects being seen and found on boats and that. This doesn't fit the scent at all. So anyhow, we pull the wardrobe out thinking, well, maybe it's gone into the wall behind it. Mm-hmm. And sure as exactly, we pull out this thing, drops down, and it's a Japanese-made kiddies clock alarm watch. And this thing has been stuck behind the wardrobe and vibrating down through the wardrobe like a natural amplifier. And it's I think we're set for 2 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, that made a good laugh. That was a funny one. The strange called Weebling What's It, we called that. But no, I suppose Sasquatch and Bigfoot and Cannock Chase. I love just areas of high interest. They are my forte now. I love the idea of having an area which I believe is naturally an area of high strangeness. I think it is geological. I think it's geomagnetic. I think it's natural occurrences, or by accident, if you like, all being in one place at one time. And they had the two correspond to each other. So the geomagnetics affect the geology affects the geomagnetics, which affect time and space and dimensions, and it causes this rifts. It causes rifts and these things, and it's nothing generated. I think it's a natural phenomena that just occurs in areas all over the earth, on land and water. Same as Bermuda Triangle, as the same as Cannock Chase and all the other ones. It's just a natural phenomena that we're still just trying to get the teeth with into. You know, that's what really fascinates me.
Well, we're actually going to Cannock Chase, doing a meet up there. And there's
brilliant.
a few of us staying overnight doing investigations.
Are you going up to the German cemetery, or?
We're going round. we're going to be going around the area near the tower, but I
Mhm.
don't want to give the exact location till after.
No, obviously not. No, that's fair enough.
But yeah, we're going to be meeting like one of the visitor centres during the day. Then there's a handful of us that are going to be investigating through the night till the early hours.
No, it's a good place. Connect Chase, yeah. She's licking her lips, anticipation. No, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't do early nights.
You
I
know,
investigated a crocodile, or an alligator. It was a crocodile in a lake, a gravel pit, a former gravel pit quarry that was a lake now, quite near to Cannock, about 5 or 10 miles away. This crocodile being seen by the kids. And morning TV, GMTV went down there and they had interviews, what have you. And we went up as an investigating team from the CSZ. And this is going to sound really crazy. Our zoologist had been head keeper of reptiles at the local zoo. And his idea of recreation was scrubbing the backs of 20-foot-and-a-half crocodiles with a brush. Loves crocodiles and that sort of creature. He said, what we'll do, we'll try and find this creature. And we found a nest in these big tall reeds. There was these nesting pods. He identified them. Said this is round circular thing with track leading down to the water. I looked at the prints and he said, and judging by what people said, he said, this is a 5-foot spotted African crocodile. And somehow it got into this lake. And I said, well, is it going to get out? Because there's lots of little ways in and out of this lake, down to canals and what have you. He said, no. He said, but it won't last long because they don't like cold weather. He said, if we can't get out by the end of summer, it'll be dead. So John, our beloved leader, volunteered me to do the PR on shore, thank God, because I can't swim. But he volunteered Graham and another person to grab life vests and a little inflatable life raft and go across the water with a depth sounder, looking for pings from this crocodile, which thankfully they didn't find. The idea was we were going to gaffer tape it up. And while the zoologist took after it in the back, and I'd drive it in the 7-seater to the zoo, and we'd offered to give it a home. But we never found that one. But that was all in that area. So you see, cryptids can exist anywhere, but they're fun. Yeah, that was another good case. Anymore? Question answered, I hope.
Another question. This is from me. Have you heard about the kangaroos that are supposed to be wild?
Yeah. The wallabies or the kangaroos on the Isle of Man? There's wallabies on the Isle of Man.
Both. I know there's a lot of these wallabies around where I don't know where it is, but just before you go into it, there is a place in Bolton just outside Manchester.
Yeah,
the guy's got a house.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a house. He's got to live somewhere, but he's got a garden at this. I don't even know why he said that.
Yeah,
ignore me. So there's a garden. He's got a garden at the side. It's not that big.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's much bigger than our garden. So it's probably, I'd say his garden probably about 60-70 square foot.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm walking past, you could see through the bushes, and there's about 7 or 8 wallabies jumping around.
Well, of course, the ones on the Isle of Man, it's quite a colony there. They started out with quite a few. Now there's over 100. Living wild on the Isle of Man.
This place is just outside Manchester.
Yeah,
in the northwest. So
if you have one pint too many at night in the local pub, and you see a kangaroo hopping past, don't worry, it's not the beer. It might be a pink elephant, maybe not, but a wallaby might be. I tell you what, if you see a fully grown kangaroo, don't try boxing it. They're extremely vicious creatures. They can actually knock a man out.
It's pure muscle, isn't it?
It is. They grow to some amazing height, taller than the average man, and they can really land you a punch. I mean, a serious punch. There was a story about swans, I was talking to a guy who used to look after the swans on the Thames, the Queen, because she did own all the swans. The region always does. And a fully grown swan can break a man's thigh with its wing beat. Ah,
Mm.
that's the beat of a fully grown swan can actually break your thigh bone. So these lovely looking creatures are fine, but they can hurt. And kangaroos definitely can hurt.
Yeah.
You see the muscle formation on a fully grown male kangaroo.
Yeah.
They're built like Tyson. They're big lads.
Yeah.
But yeah, I envy you, Cannock Chase. I love Cannock Chase.
Well, we're not going till September.
Yeah,
Got a few weeks yet.
No, yeah, I'll be looking forward to that, mate. I'm trying to get down to Rendlesham Forest. Believe it or not, I'm a British ufologist. I've never been to Rendlesham.
You need to go.
I need to go, but this COPD, as your listeners and viewers can no doubt hear, I've got COPD, and it's restricted my walking somewhat now. I used a trolley. I got myself a scooter, a mobility scooter for the sake of my sin. Apart from driving, I use one of these, and so I'm glad Cannock Chase has now got nice pathways apparently. So
it's easy to get around.
So I've got an 8 mile an hour one, so I can always scarper quick if Bigfoot chases me.
Turbo, get turbo.
Oh, that's right. No, I'll punch you on the back. She can stand on the back. She's only 4'11". We'll get her to stand on the back, and we'll charge off together to the Blue Yonder. If I go through a portal, that could be interesting. But there you are. I don't know what people in 12th dimension or 13th dimension or 21st dimension would think of it. An inherent ufologist and his wife suddenly appear on a strange four-wheeled machine. Yeah. There you are.
Well, when you mentioned Rendlesham, I'm supposed to be going in. Sorry, I'm just looking at my calendar. 1, 2. In about 3 weeks, I'm meeting up with someone, and they're going to take me on a little guided tour.
Oh, I know a couple of guys who know Rendlesham quite well, and one was called Alex Lovelock, and Alex.
That's who I'm meeting.
Alex is a good guy.
He's a top bloke,
and what he doesn't know about Rendlesham isn't worth knowing.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a really nice chap. Say hi for me, will you?
I will do.
He'll say, "Oh God, not him," because we're two old cabbies. We're two old cabbies together. Yeah, he was a taxi driver like myself. But no, he is very knowledgeable when it comes to Rendlesham. But I mean, Rendlesham. When I was chatting to people, I'll call it chatting. I hate lecturing. When I used to give talks, you could always say we in the circuit could always say there'd be the 2 R words mentioned in the question and answer. Rendlesham being one, and Roswell. There was the 2 R's. You could always get questions about one or the other. And you're going to ask me what I think about Roswell now, aren't you?
Well, that's next. But I was just going to say, Alex is back on the show on November the 17th.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, I've been on his, as you know, I've been on his a few times, and he's been on air, so it's all good.
I've never been on Alex's show. I like him
right.
something.
I'm going to message him. And
went on there once, apparently. My secretary informs me that I was on there once, so I stand corrected. Sorry, Alex.
You need to get back on. I'll message him later and say, look, you need to get Nigel back on. What's wrong?
Thank you for that one. I had to make yourself popular on easy lesson. No, it's do you know what? There are so many. I don't know about you, Andy, but I'm down. As you can tell, I'm a pretty down to earth chap, and I don't like egos. The one thing that really annoys me, in the past, not so much nowadays, is I've known so many people with egos in this game, paranormal game. I've known so many people whose egos are far bigger than what they are, and it's a shame because you and I both love the whole subject. I can tell you're like me. You love the subject, and to see it taken and used to build one's own ego up, I absolutely hate that. And I got into an awful lot of trouble once because I wrote an article about carpet bagging in the paranormal. And there was so much of it going on back in the 70s and 80s, especially. Oh, wasn't it so? Everywhere we went to do a show or Sue was a children's writer, and we used to desktop publish her books at craft shows. And every time I went, there was always alleged mediums, alleged card readers, who were no more card readers and mediums than I was.
I have a certain app on here,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent out with friends requests,
Yeah.
and I had 5 of them send me the same
Text.
letter and text.
Yeah, 5 different people alleging to offer certain psychic services, and they're using exactly the same letter.
No.
Yeah, it's like, this is cool. I don't think there is, but it's. But we all get a bit flattered, don't we, in this game? Well, I do. I suppose especially if you've been in it a few years and somebody remembers who you are, and they say, "Oh, well, come on like yourself," and say, it's a little bit of you thinks, well, yeah, I'd like the sound of that. That'd be great. Do it again, old times. But do I get an ego about it? No. I'm lucky that way. I guess I've never had one, and if I have,
I
as well hidden.
That. I openly admit I don't know that much. I only know what people have told me, the encounters I've had, and most of the encounters I've had, I can't even tell you. I can tell you what I seen, but if you ask me what it was, don't know.
Well done, you. I like that. I fully approve of that, Andy. That to me is the sensiblest way I've ever heard of people investigating the paranormal. If it was paranormal and we knew everything, it wouldn't be para, would it?
No,
That would be perfectly normal. There's no such thing as knowing. The word expert gets me. People describe me as an expert, and I used to say, "Look, I'm not an expert. I'm just an enthusiast.
Yeah,
I enthuse over the subject. I've studied it for years, but that doesn't make me an expert. If I was an expert,
if you enjoy it, it
makes
it so much more better.
I love the inquisitiveness. I love
learning,
trying to find answers.
Yeah,
and if I can't find the answers, I love to theorize about the answer or something. I think, what if that would work? Could we explain that way or this way? Or was a person drinking too much in the pub after 11? Or is there it's a substantial clarification of the circumstances? Have we got witnesses that corroborate? There's so much that goes into taking the subject seriously. You can be serious, but you can still have fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and to me, at the end of the day, if people walk away like tonight and they say, "Yeah, he didn't know an awful lot, but hey, it was fun listening to him."
Yeah,
your job done.
That makes a big difference, I think.
I think so. I don't want to be known as Mr. 100% serious all of the time. No. I take my job seriously in the sense that I'll do my best to try and get to the bottom of something. But will I be 100% serious all the time? No, I don't think I could be. No. I actually don't think I'm built that way.
I can't do boring. It's just not. It's not.
If I am boring, I apologise to anyone out there.
I have days where I kind of shut down from it all and just don't want to do anything. But it's like anyone in anything. And
I'll tell you, I do every night. Every night I've done for the last 55, 60 years now, is if I wake up, which I normally do around about 2 in the morning, I'll go and look at the bedroom window at my sky overlooking Morecambe Bay, and I'll open up the window and I'll look out. I'll be there watching the stars, if there are any, watching the patches in between the clouds, if there are any.
It's funny you should say that. I do exactly the same thing. If I
never lost that from when I was a kid. I've always had to look up in the sky.
Yeah.
And it's still a wonder about what's out there.
Yeah.
I'll never know. Not on this side, but I still wonder, am I going to see something spectacular? I've seen a few things. I've been lucky. I've been so lucky in my life that I can't say how grateful I am. I'm lucky I've got a partner who supports me, and without her, I'd be nothing. I've been lucky because I survived cancer. I've been lucky that I got to walk again and talk again. I'm lucky because I had kids afterwards as well, which I wasn't supposed to have. And grandkids. One can say all the time, life is a so-and-so, and I got bills. Well, yeah, everybody has. But I'm coming up to retirement now this year. I've got my pension to look forward to. Wife and I are going to spend some time traveling. The kids are grown up and left home. And it's just, you know, for someone who I wasn't given 5 years to live 30 odd years ago. So that was after the operation.
That's not bad going, that.
It's not bad, is it? And if I can't be cheerful about that, then, you know, if I can't have a laugh and say thank you, Lord, for that, well, then that's bad news, without being too religious. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
No.
Life isn't bad at all, really. And
going off,
so much the better.
Going off what you said when you said you can't sleep at night, I do exactly the same thing, except I'm looking over a tree line. I'll go to the window, I'll stick my head round the curtain so I don't wake the missus up, because the window's on the other side of the room. And I just stand there, just watching the clouds pass, and if there's any and just see if I can see anything. Here from there, could be there 2 minutes, could be there 2.5 hours. It doesn't matter.
That's same here. And you know, more often than not, you'll get these small star-like UAPs. Call them what you want. I just call them UFOs. These are UAPs now, and all that's all new jargon to me. But you'll get these lights, and you think that's a satellite. No, it's not. It's star train link. You know, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's hang on. It's stopped. It's going backwards. It's going forwards. I must be moving my head. So I looked at the old trick. I sort of fastened a stick up on a mantelpiece on the windowsill, and I hold it still with one way closed to see if it's moving or not. So I know that it's not me. The thing is moving. You know.
I use the window frame for that.
Yeah, the same thing.
An angle, and it's like, right, if it moves, it's not me.
Do you use a tenpenny bit for judging the size of something? The trick is if you hold a tenpenny piece in between your finger and thumb at arm's length, it will give you some idea of perspective. Then in the daylight, you can measure up an object, known object like a church tower or an ordinary tower or a tall building, I think, with the same thing, the same coin, the same arm length out. And it'll give us some idea of dimensions of the size of the object you saw.
I never thought of doing that.
Well, that's a good old rule of something. I think that goes back about 50 years. You know, the very first kit I ever took sky watching. There you are, folks. I'm going to make people feel very funny with this. As a young lad, when I used to go up sky watching on our local hills, I would go with the proverbial zip up blue anorak you used to have for schools with the orange liner on it. Then I had a school Mac that was an old one done up with a belt, double 50 album. My granddad's World War II Carl Zeiss 7x50 Naval Commander's U-boat binoculars, beautiful binoculars. I don't know how he got hold of them in the war, but a war booty, and they were fantastic for sky watching at night. They had the target finder and the Gratchel, and that was Nazi symbols all over it. They were beautiful binoculars. So Carl Zeiss, beautiful optics. And then I had a vacuum flask of tea, and it was always stewed. Always stewed. And my dad's old lunchbox and some sandwiches that I'd made up myself, pickled sandwiches, cheese and pickle or something like that. And I'd sit up there for about 5-6 hours at night on top of these old wet damp hills, seeing things, sometimes seeing nothing. On camera was my Instamatic 120. There you are, a little 120 cartridge in it.
Yes, yeah.
127 cartridge rather. And there you are. But that was that grand sum total of my technical kit.
Yeah. All you need is a camera.
It's I use mine the Samsung, and when I'm talking to you on tonight, I use my S21, which I'm upgrading to the S23 definitely.
Yes. Shh. Oh, he's gone.
I'm back again.
I'm
back again. On again.
Oh, right, then.
Hey, that was good. Did you see that? I teleported through dimensions then.
Like the Flash.
No, it's
don't tell the missus you're upgrading, whatever you do.
I think the it doesn't like the sound of it. I've heard good news. The cameras are getting so fantastic now. I love the photographic gear. I've still got the DSLR and all the gear there. I hardly ever use it. No,
Yeah.
all the
Well,
television. I paid about £100 for a 200mm lens. I never use it.
yeah.
Just
But like
having-
I was saying, yeah, sorry, I was just going to
No,
say, like
no.
I was saying to you the other day, I've got the S23 Ultra.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to put it on night shot to take a night vision photo.
And
It's
that's
just automatic.
Oh,
And as
mate,
long as you're standing reasonably still when you take and it's just like daylight. It
Yeah.
really is.
I mean, that is the ufologist's dream. I mean,
Yeah.
can't believe that. It really is. I count myself so lucky to see such advances in technology in our game. I have a very young man who's just starting out in our field called Mark Anderson, who I'm friends with. And Mark, who is a professional data analyst, he teaches data analysis at uni, and very clever chap. He's getting interested in the use of AI in paranormal research, in ufology particularly, and he has taught me not to expect too much from AI, but he sees the possibilities of how you can use it for analyzing data from UFO sightings and that. And I tell you what, it holds such promise for the future. If anything's going to help us, it's going to be AI and quantum computing. We need it, to fully understand and go to the next stage on in understanding it. We need some really good tech, and it's coming. It's coming. Within 5 years, I think we'll have it. I love AI. I use ChatGPT. I try to. I thought the other day I do something on Facebook. So I said, look, folks, the rest of the day I'm not going to be talking to you. Anything you ask me, I'll be getting ChatGPT to write it out for me. So it did. And it was writing out subjects of anything people were saying or asking me. I was writing back, but it wasn't me. It was GPT doing the writing. Fascinating thing. Fascinating thing. But it's very infancy. Yeah, it's still in its infancy.
Oh yeah.
When it gets going, by God, I think it's going to go with a bang. And I think people are scared. I think unnecessarily of it. I think people think, what's that one? Will Smith, iRobot, was it?
Yeah. AI.
I think people see that and they think, oh God, and war games and things. They see Terminator. Oh, Lord. I made it Mark laugh when they said Terminator. He said, no. AI is not going to do that,
No.
But I think it will advance our cause as far as paranormal research of all forms of paranormal and scientific research. It's going to be a fantastic tool. It is a tool, but it's going to be a fantastic tool. And I think it's going to open up all new fields of expertise, and it'll bring in young men like Mark. And I am going to say his name again, Mark Anderson, who, folks, if you get a chance to listen to him, yes, he's very technical, but my God, he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
And it's going to be a very big name in our game in the future. He's definitely one to watch. And I do everything to encourage the guy, because it's what we need. New blood, new young blood coming in. It's all right for Foster's like myself.
Definitely.
Took like good old days, but we need new young chaps coming in with new ideas all the time. The more new ideas, the better. I'm all for that. I'll get off my soapbox again now.
It's all right. Right. Got 4 more questions for you. Is that okay?
Ooh, go. Yep. I'll go for 20 bonus this time, please.
So this is from Baby with a Laser, Darren.
Right.
He'd like to know, Nigel, are you aware of the Humidras? Is it Humidras? I experienced it once in Woolacombe.
No, I'm not actually.
Humidras?
Right, I've never heard of it. I'll be honest with you. You caught me out on that one, my friend. Well and truly, that doesn't ring any bells, which is unusual for me. I'm sorry. You stumped me on that one.
Just with you talking about Woolacombe before.
Yeah.
So,
I haven't.
That's his question.
I'm sorry, my friend. I can't be of help on that one. Gosh, ever been embarrassed? Yeah. It was bound to happen sooner or later,
Like you,
wouldn't it?
said, like you said before, we don't know everything.
No, and I've never actually heard of that.
Here we go.
Uh-huh.
So this is from Jojo. She's just updated it. Humidruz is a name coined in the 19th century for a strange humming noise heard in the country, usually in still summer weather and with no apparent source.
Right.
It's a humming.
Yeah, well, you know, I hear that occasionally. We're around here. Now, I put that down. First of all, I thought my father engineering background again. I thought maybe it was because it was at night. It was the freezer engine coming on the condenser. But then no, because I stuck my head out the window and it's louder. I thought that's odd. Now we're about 2.5 miles away from a nuclear power station.
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, it's possibly late night cooling because there's an awful lot of cooler vents and you get this enormous amounts of steam coming out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the nighttime pumping out of the cooler vents or something, you know, and they got these enormous generators there, obviously. So maybe it's that. But yeah, people do hear these very strange humming sounds all around the world. And then people hear trumpets as well. Isn't that fascinating?
Sky trumpets.
I love that. That's a real Ludo.
I've never heard any.
I haven't, but I've heard pretty convincing recordings of things.
Oh yeah.
And I've got no explanation for that whatsoever. I can't even begin to understand that one. I wish I could.
That's something else on its own, I think.
I'm having a drink, folks. Non-alcoholic ice, and I had cold coffee.
Well, but just to get you excited again, one of the reasons why I went to Cannock Chase last time to the stepping stones, I can't remember who it was, but someone in the chat said that when I don't know if it was when they went, but they'd heard that where the stepping stones are, you can hear like a humming noise or a vibration coming out the ground.
What do you see now? You got me thinking now.
I didn't hear anything when I went.
Cannock Chase, area of high strangeness. Okay. I think we're agreed that it's an area where there are a lot of occurrences of all different types of paranormal supernatural events occurring within a specific area. That's a pretty good description of Cannock Chase. Oh, I would think so.
Yeah.
Topography, very similar to all the rest. If you look at topography, it's, you know, obviously trees, gravel, beds. The gravel usually contains quartz. The bedrock might contain quartz. There's usually running water or still water just under the surface. And it's usually got very strange patterns because of it. And that's usually, I think, because to do with the running water going over quartz. I don't know if you believe in ley lines. I know ley lines is a made-up definition, and you can call them natural magnetic lines of force or energy. If you like. That humming might have something to do with that natural energy. Maybe it's what the ancients used when they positioned things like Stonehenge. We know that
could be.
You know, you can use pendants. You can use dowsing rods. I've dowsed over a tumuli, and the crazy thing was I was using some professionally made dowsing rods. They're wire, obviously, but they were held in big pen cases. Just a case of big pen on each of them. So obviously you can't move it because if you move your hand,
they're like the ones I've got. They've got a sleeve on them.
Yeah.
So when you turn, they obviously they don't.
You try looking across a cumuli, a true cumuli. When you get to the top, the things cross over viciously on their own, and if you walk past the top of it, they'll swing apart. I tried that 6 or 7 times, and every time. Now I had somebody film me to actually make sure I wasn't subconsciously moving my arms. There was no movement on my hands, none whatsoever. That thing was literally nearly pulling themselves out of my hand when I got to the middle of it. Crazy, crazy. And of course, do you know that ley lines run through the high altar of most of the Anglo-Saxon churches, early churches.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a ley line goes through most of the high altars on Earth. Well, the ancients knew where to build them. It's the same as
Right.
Stonehenge. Stonehenge lays in a junction of 7 or 8 major ley lines. It's,
Ah.
there you are.
Right.
But they
He's
did
just,
that. Well, they knew where to look. You know.
yeah. No, sorry. He's just updated that he said it was at Twitching House Holiday Park, and it was like a swarm of hornets round his head.
I mean, oh, that's a good one. No, I hadn't heard of it. I'll be honest with you. Thank you for telling me it. I shall have to go and dig away and do a bit of research on that. Thank you. I've learned, as I say to this game, you never try to learn, and I'm the first one to admit that. So I will have to go in and do my homework on that one. Thank you. That's a fascinating story. That again, that's a different variation of that sound. Because humming, hornets, trumpets, buzzing. I think every variation of sound known to man. Funny enough, I was heard a film today about sounds that have just been released by NASA. The tape recording of the early Apollo around the moon flight, where it didn't actually land. It went around the back of the moon. And while it was around, they were recording all this. And it got filed away on records and nothing was ever said. And they just released the recording. And it's got strange whistles and everything being heard by the crew and recorded while they were on around the back of the moon. There was no way they were receiving any transmission from Earth because they were behind the moon. You couldn't receive or send out anything to Earth. We were blocked off. But they had this strange whistling sound. It's the most eerie thing I've ever heard in my life. And I don't know where it came from. And it stopped.
That is strange.
Yeah, it is. And NASA said, well, it was probably interference between the mics. Yeah, right. Okay. Funny, they never got it again. There you are.
Someone's just put in the chat it was the clangers. Because they do whistling, didn't they?
I confess I had a kid who used to love that, and I watched a lot of the clangers, didn't we? Oh, they had that soup. Yeah, it could be, I suppose.
That was it. Yeah.
I love that one. I can remember that next time I'm having a pint. Thanks for that, my friend. Clangers.
Right.
Well, there you are. We discovered an alien life form.
Right, we've got 2 more questions, and then I'm going to have to end it. I'm sorry.
Okay, fine. Yeah, fine.
We're coming back in November, so it's all good. So, next question is from Mike Wright. He wants to know what's Nigel's most memorable experience of the paranormal?
It has to be it has to be the black leopard, the Melistic Melistic leopard, and a black panther. It has to be sitting there watching that and getting paralytic with fear. Other than that, that low-flying FT that went over my house, weird 9-engined thing that was cruising around about, as an estimate, no more than about 300 or 400 feet above my house. And it was just wider than a jumbo jet, but there was hardly any noise in it. And it turned slowly towards Lake District and just flew off with these 3 batches of 3 lights in like pods, 2 on one wing and 1 on the center section above. And they glowed brighter as this thing went. It's like something out of Star Trek. It really was. That was the most fascinating. It hummed. But it didn't make any roaring sound. No engine sound as such.
Nothing.
Electromagnetic. I'll lay my bottom dollar on it. It's using some sort of electromagnetic energy field. But there you go. We'll stop being technical about that because I don't want to get boring. But that's what I think it is. That's the 2 major ones. What would I like to see? I've seen ghosts, but I'd like to see a lot more. I'd love to see Loch Ness Monster. We've done Loch Ness a couple of times. I haven't seen it. Wish I had, but I haven't seen it. Have I?
Yeah.
I'm.
There you go.
Eh?
Seen ghosts.
Oh, I've seen ghosts.
Go on an investigation.
Oh, no, one my sister swimming. No, that's cruel. No, no, yeah, I'd say Loch Ness monster and ghosts. I'd love to see more of them. Definitely. I think yes, as a person who does this or did this for a living for a lot of years, there's always some more you'd like to say. There's always a creature you'd like to.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, see a Sasquatch up close. Probably not. I think I'd be absolutely terrified if I
yeah.
came
From a
in.
distance.
An alien? I hear somebody say, well, I see a grey, yeah, at a distance. Again, if it was intimately close, I don't think I would like it so
No.
much. But at a distance or through a window, even, I can handle that, I think. There are limits to my bravery as an investigator. I'm not one of these fearless guys. I wish I was, but I'll step in many places of angels, fearless dread, but there's quite a few I won't, you know. But that's one of them. I've been underneath Winter Gardens Theatre stage at 2 in the morning. I was attacked by poltergeist. That was quite exciting. I was doing a solo. I got full of admiration for the guys on NH who do it. And anyone who does solos late at night, you've got to have a lot of guts to do that, because that is frightening, especially in the pitch dark. That's really, your mind does double tricks. Yeah, you know, it's all bang. Sorry?
Doing overtime.
Oh God, yeah. The imagination's a marvelous thing. It can also terrify you. We sat in the cell, didn't we? That was in Lancaster Castle, where the Pendle witches were held. We sat in that cell and it was shut.
They locked us in.
And Sue, who is clairvoyant, she's clairaudient. She doesn't practice it, but she's naturally it, and she's very good at it. And you started seeing them, didn't you? There and feeling them, definitely felt them.
No, but nobody has seen that.
You're fascinating.
I am so.
We went down to. There's a place on Morecambe Seafront called the Platform, which, for obvious reasons, was a disused railway station, and they converted it to an entertainment centre. We went down there to watch a Glenn Miller type band. It wasn't Glenn Miller, but it was the other big one. I can't remember who that was either. But I like big band music, so we went there to watch that. We were having a great time, lovely evening. And all of a sudden, Sue was looking across at this gap at the front, to the right-hand side of the stage. There's some doors that lead back behind the stage, big doors. Yeah. And she said, what's that guy in railway's uniform doing stood there? She said, there's a guy stood there looking at us. I said, what? There's no one there. I can't see a soul. And I'm suddenly thinking, oh God, Sue's seeing something. So I said, well, describe it to me. And she's describing this uniform, very Victorian, peaked cap, bronze.
Please tell them that I don't do history.
No, she don't do history. She hates history. But she was describing, and then she said what she was good at was the costumes and the hairdos. She's a hairstylist. Yeah. She was a former English champion, so she knows what she's talking about there. And she said, they got 1940s hairstyles, the girls, 40s dresses, and chaps are in evening suits and uniforms. And again, I couldn't say anything. And they were all there tapping their feet. He was playing In the Mood. The Glenn Miller. There you are. And yet we've looked and the records show no sign of ghosts there, but Sue definitely saw them at night. The music conjures up their spirit.
I've sat here talking to my dead late brother.
Yeah, you sat there talking.
Here, where you're sat.
Oh, that's it, yeah. Good night, folks. This is a cheerful one. My dear brother-in-law, Mike, was a journalist. He was a sports journalist. Well, he passed away in this house. Right where I'm sat, believe it or not, 2 years ago. Very great, very sudden, very peaceful. Great go. Yeah. So, but the thing was, Sue came down one morning, you sat here. And she goes, oh, he goes, hello, Sue, about 2 weeks after he passed, and they had a conversation. I said, oh, I gotta go now. I knew you'd see me all right. And
I've seen the vicar from your family.
Yeah, you've seen a vicar from my family that died in the 1920s. It's with Sue, it's an everyday occurrence. And if we go off anywhere, you can guarantee you'll see something of someone.
But you don't tell me of anything.
I won't tell you. I got to the thing now. Sue said, for God's sake, don't talk to me about it, because otherwise my imagination will run riot. So I said,
Right.
right. So I never even tell her if it's got a history of haunting. I never tell her where we're going until we get
No.
there.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
why.
the way, it's the best way I can control the experiment, if you like, is to control the information flow. So there's no way that she could have done homework on it. She'd not done the history of ghosts. She had no idea where we were going. 9 times out of 10, do you?
No,
I just say, oh, we're off today. Oh, we'll go off out for the day. That's all she'll know.
sometimes I don't see anything.
Yeah, sometimes
I
we
go
go there
out and we
and we
won't
draw a
see
blank,
anything.
which is nice, because that means, in a way, it's a controlled experiment, you know. But sometimes we get some really good results. Yeah, I woke up one morning, saw soldiers with his sword leaning over the bed to cut my head off. So apparently I was having an affair with his wife, who in the previous life had been my wife. There you go. You never know. And she'll wake up in the middle of the night and just
Shout in the night.
she'll shout in a male voice. She get all these different male
Right.
voices. And Stuart's very much a female when it comes to shouting that. But it's always
Yeah.
something get this. I'll be there sound asleep and I'll be, wake up, boy, up, you bastard. I love that. What? Suddenly jump up and I think he's in the bedroom.
Not me.
And it's not certain. Then I swearing for a start. Oh no, she wouldn't swear like a Liverpool docker or what anyway. But, you know, and I get this total.
Don't use those words.
No.
Myself.
I want to apologise to people, but you know, it was just a factual
Yeah.
explanation of what was being said. But yeah, I mean, being married to someone who's naturally clairvoyant, clairaudient can be interesting. It can be terrifying on occasions, but it can be interesting. And if you're like me, it's like being a kid in a candy shop, you know. It's I don't have to go far to do my investigating, just be my wife. And
That's
it
it.
comes to me, you know.
Yeah. Makes your job easier, doesn't it?
Well, yes, but it makes it 10 times harder in a way, because then I got to sift out the wheat from the chaff, you know what I mean? We went up to a place called Heysham Chapel, St. Patrick's Chapel, Heysham. It's one of the oldest Christian places on the west coast. Supposedly founded by St. Patrick himself, but it's got the famous stone graves cut into them, Viking stone graves. They were on the best of Black Sabbath LP cover. There's a very famous cover, and there are these stone graves cut right into the rock there. And of course, it's just a ruin of the chapel there. But there's this deep recessed pathway that goes up around the back. You go down some steps to it. Well, we were just walking down there, and I was doing some filming about it. Now, Sue had not ever been there. Like I say, didn't know any of the history. Doesn't like history.
No.
We go in, and all of a sudden, I hadn't talked about anything to do with it. I won't. And all of a sudden, just walking around, and she said, "Why this girl screaming? God, there's men shouting, there's women screaming. Take me away from this place. I can't stand it." We did it, and it turns out obviously it must have been a Viking raid there.
Right.
And whoever, she heard these women shout they were being attacked, and you can imagine, and what have you. And she heard the men shouting and the clashing of arms and weapons and that. There were all swords now clanking together, and general sounds of battle, but only in that one place, in this recessed pathway. It's strange. It's strange.
Right, we are going to have to bring this to an end because we're over the 2-hour mark.
Oh, sorry, sir.
I'd stay all night, but I'd just it's just a pain if we do more than 2 hours.
Yeah,
you are coming back on.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show, Andy. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope people have too. So it's been great fun.
You're back on in 12 weeks.
Yeah.
It sounds long, but it's not.
Well, I've got excitement because I got my new car coming next week, so I'm looking forward to that. Excellent. Back on 4 wheels, thank God. But thank you again. Thank you ever so much. I've really enjoyed myself. It's been a great honour, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
I could listen to you all night. I really could.
Well, you're amongst very few.
Where do you live? I'll send him on a train
for you. Oh, well, I'm going to the highest bidder. There you are.
You're getting booted out of the house. So just want to say thank you, Nigel.
You're
And,
more than welcome, my friend. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been great fun. And thank you, everybody who listened. And thanks for the questions. You've caught me out a couple of times, so I've lived and learned. Thank you.
Yeah, and everyone that listens on the podcast, thank you for subscribing and keep listening.
Indeed.
Next week, we've got Kaz Clark and Gary Jones talking about the Penchurch UFO incident. So
I'll keep my mouth shut. I'll stay neutral on that one.
So yeah, she's on next week. Then the following Wednesday, got Nathaniel Gillis coming on. That's a non-paranormal one. Then we've got Agnost and Preston Dennett the following Friday. So have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Yeah, indeed. Enjoy your weekend, everyone.
And I will see you all next Friday. So take care, everyone, and good night.
Good night to you, Andy. Good night, everyone. Thanks very much for taking time. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.